steps. I wasn't sure how to interpret it. And so I kind of, whenever I work with anybody, I have them read different things in the literature and then do the steps in the workbook and do the questions. And then we have a dynamic where we talk to each other and a lot of things happen like that. But I looked at some of the other ways, and I did some looking around to see what some of the other ways we can look at this process. Okay. And here's some of the approaches that I was able to see out there. Number one, it says using the CoDA literature, CoDA 12 Steps and Traditions workbook, along with the Codependence Anonymous Tech, provides structured guidance. And then, of course, there's sponsorship. Working with a sponsor or co-sponsor can often offer personalized support and accountability. And then there's also step study groups. Joining or forming a step study group allows for collective learning and sharing experiences with others who are working through the steps. Meetings, regular CoDA meetings are a great place to discuss your progress, receive some guidance, and find support from experienced members. There's workshops or retreats. Participating in workshops or retreats that are focused on the 12 steps can provide intensive or immersive experiences. And then, of course, there's online resources with utilizing online tools, such as downloadable guides and worksheets. Those can also be helpful. Now, I've been in recovery long enough for quite a few years, and I've, in this time, working the steps in a few different programs, I probably tried every one of these things, okay, with the exception of the online resources, okay? But all the other stuff I've done at least once or twice. But after doing that, and I did a lot of thinking about this before I started, and I came to a conclusion. In my view, sponsorship is the best way to experience the 12 steps. And there's benefits, I believe, that are available only in the sponsorship experience. So I'm going to talk about that because I feel I need to do that. And it's important for me to share it because I know CoDA is, the CoDA current climate is kind of difficult to get sponsors and stuff. And maybe I can convince some people to be sponsors that are kind of holding back on that. Anyway, I'm going to share a few things adapted from various CoDA literature resources, interspersed with some thoughts of my own. And very few of these thoughts are original. Most of them come from sponsors or things that I've read or heard in meetings, and then used them in my recovery. So when you steal from one person, it's called plagiarism. But when you steal from lots of different people, well, that's called research. So most of this following that I'm going to have is from my research, okay? So sponsorship is a crucial element in the 12-step recovery programs like CoDA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, etc. And it's for several reasons. There's guidance and support. Sponsors who themselves are successful program participants provide guidance and support to newcomers as they navigate the 12-step process. This could involve explaining the steps, offering advice on working through challenges, and sharing their own experience in recovery. Accountability. Sponsors keep those in recovery accountable for their actions. Regular communication with a sponsor allows them to identify compulsions or urges and offer support to stay on track. Confidence and inspiration. Sponsors serve as living proof that long-term recovery is possible. Their success stories can inspire those in early recovery to stay motivated and hopeful about their own journey. Confidant. Sponsor-sponsee relationship is built on trust, allowing newcomers to confide in someone who understands the struggles of codependency without judgment. This safe place can be essential for open communications and working through difficult emotions, which we all know about. Improved outcomes. Studies have shown that having a sponsor in a 12-step program is linked to a better recovery outcome and greater program involvement. In short, sponsors act as mentors, confidants, sources of encouragement, all playing a vital role in helping individuals maintain their 12-step recovery process. So what makes a good sponsor? A good sponsor in recovery programs is somebody who embodies a blend of qualities that contribute to the support and guidance of individuals in their recovery journey. Key attributes include the ability to relate to the sponsee, and shared experiences can foster a deeper understanding and connection. They should also lead by example, displaying the kind of life that sponsees aspire to achieve in post-recovery, which includes stable relationships, a positive outlook on life. Honesty and integrity are foundational, ensuring that the guidance provided is both trustworthy and ethical. It is important that they have accrued enough recovery time to have navigated through various challenges that come with recovery. The experience allows them to offer practical advice and support. A good sponsor should also be available and willing to invest the necessary time and energy into the relationship, providing a reliable source of support when needed. Additionally, they should maintain healthy boundaries, promote personal responsibility, and have a comprehensive understanding of the 12-step program to effectively guide their sponsees through it. These qualities collectively create a sponsor who can not only offer support and accountability, but also inspire, hope, and facilitate lasting recovery. So you're probably thinking, how do I ask somebody to be a sponsor? Approaching someone to be a sponsor is a significant step in the recovery journey. It's recommended to look for someone who has successfully maintained recovery and is actively involved in their own recovery process. When you find a potential sponsor, it's important to be honest and open about your needs and expectations. You can initiate the conversation by expressing your admiration for their journey and the qualities they possess that resonate with you. It's also helpful to ask if they have time and willingness to take on a role of the sponsor. Remember, it's okay if somebody declines. Finding the right sponsor is about mutual compatibility and the ability to foster a supportive relationship. So what if I'm nervous about asking somebody to be a sponsor? Feeling nervous about asking someone to be your sponsor is completely natural and quite common. It's a step that requires vulnerability and trust. To ease this process, it might be helpful to remember that sponsorship is a voluntary, mutual relationship. Most potential sponsors are likely to feel honored by the request. It's also beneficial to prepare for the conversation by reflecting on why you've chosen this person and how you believe they can help you. Practice what you might say. And remember, it's okay to express your nervousness. They may appreciate your honesty. If the thought of a face-to-face request is too daunting, consider starting the conversation over a phone call, or after a meeting. If the first person you ask is unable to commit, don't be discouraged. The right sponsor is out there for you. And the courage to reach out is already a significant step in your recovery journey. Remember, the recovery community is built on support and understanding, and seeking a sponsor is a respected and encouraged action within these groups. Years ago, a famous anthropologist named Margaret Mead was asked by a student, maybe you guys have heard this, what she considered to be the first sign of civilization in a culture. The student expected Mead to talk about fish hooks or clay pots or grinding stones, that kind of stuff. But no, Mead said the first sign of civilization in an ancient culture was a femur, thigh bone, that had been broken and healed. Mead explained that in the animal kingdom, if you break your leg, you die. And you cannot run from danger. You can't get to the river for a drink or hunt for food. And you're meat for prowling beasts. No animal survives with a broken leg long enough for the bone to heal. A broken femur that has healed is evidence that someone has taken the time to stay with the one who fell. They bound up the wound and then carried the person to safety and has tended to that person through the recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization starts. Mead says we are at best when we serve others. Be civilized. No effort should ever seem so great that it will stop us from giving of ourselves in helping someone find the kind of life others have helped us find. It is a responsibility of each member to go to any lengths in giving service. Whatever sacrifice it may require from us will bring great rewards. And I believe one of the goals of sponsorship is to help create new sponsors. We always learn that in the act of one person helping another, no person can give without receiving or get without giving. We learn from our sponsors that when they help us, they are also helping themselves. This experience is a very important part of the program. Our first, second, and fifth traditions are grounded in the principle of service to others. We are privileged to share in that experience. Sponsorship is a connection. And I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Now, to a codependent, true connection to another human being is a new experience. Being accepted unconditionally is a wonderful thing. To accept another person without an agenda is a great growth catalyst. Both the sponsor and the sponsee benefit from this dynamic. For those new to sponsorship or uncertain about whether they're ready to sponsor, I encourage you to find out more about sponsorship and the tools available. There's CoDA pamphlets out there, which I've read quite a few of them that talk about how to do this. And they're available to help guide you. Talk to other folks about this experience. Chances are you're more ready than you know. Don't let the low self-esteem patterns get in your way of helping your growth. Healthy boundaries in sponsorship. To be effective, CoDA sponsorship depends on the maintenance of healthy boundaries on control issues such as advice giving, caretaking, and rescuing. We can think of sponsorship as a three-way partnership for recovery, one that includes a higher power, a sponsor, and the person to be sponsored. We can choose the 12 steps and 12 traditions as guiding principles in this new relationship. Sharing with a sponsor gives sponsees a new perspective about the way they've been treated by others. At the same time, they have the chance to learn what it is about our behavior that creates problems in relationships. I mean, that's what we came here for, about relationships, right? Giving feedback as sponsors, we work on developing the skills to be honest without advising, lecturing, or engaging in codependent communication behaviors. Recovery, it's a collaborative effort. No one among us can save him or herself. Each of us is the universe's instrument of the other's healing. And only by the hope that we give one another are we lifted out of the darkness and despair and into the light of recovery. Never think what you have to offer is insignificant. There will always be someone who needs what you have to give. Someone will be inspired by the part of your story that you're most ashamed of. One day you will tell how you overcome what you've gone through now or been through in the past, and it will become part of someone else's new survival guide. Since recovery from codependency can't be done alone, it's important for sponsees to have someone who will point out codependent behaviors when asked, and who can share their own experience, strength, and hope in recovery. As sponsors, this relationship allows us to practice our recovery skills and often reminds us where we have been, where we are now. It is a service to one another, as well as the CoDA program as a whole. A rising tide lifts all boats. On a practical level, some things you may want to start to establish include setting a regular meeting time for check-ins and step work, clear communication expectation, who calls who, length of meeting time, etc. What format do you suggest for working the steps? What are your availability outside of the planned meeting time? In other words, can your sponsee call you at other times? If so, are there other times you can't be called? If a temporary sponsorship, establish a time to renegotiate the arrangement. Will you check in after a month or working together, 6 months, or is a sponsee looking for a permanent sponsor? Figure that stuff out. So it's all negotiable. Please remember that a sponsor does not mean you are perfect or work a perfect program. It's part of living the 12 step that we give back what we have been given, so that we will continue to get the gifts of the program. So now you're probably saying, Geno, why do you think it's so important for me to hear other people's stuff? I don't have enough stuff and pain and suffering of my own, which is exactly what I said before I started sponsoring. But I learned that giving to other people is what makes me feel alive. Not my car, not my house, not what I look like in the mirror. When I give my time, when I can help someone see that they're valuable after they've hated themselves for years, that's as close as healthy as I ever feel. Do the kind of things that come from your heart. And when you do, you won't be dissatisfied. You won't be envious, and you won't be longing for what you don't have. On the contrary, you'll be overwhelmed by what comes back. So we're carrying the message. So what's the message we're supposed to be carrying? Now, I know, work the steps, follow traditions, and you'll develop into a better version of yourself without codependency, happy, joyous, and free, a snappy dresser, and an all-around good guy, right? Well, maybe not. In reality, or in my case, it's been an incremental process of awareness, action, acceptance, and accountability. Most of the growth is preceded by some degree of pain, which leads to the awareness. And my sponsor always helped me with the acceptance, the action, and reminded me of my accountability. So when they're ready, this is an axiom, when they're ready, you can't say nothing wrong. In other words, you can't screw it up. And if they're not ready, you probably can't say nothing right. You're just carrying the message. We're not owning the results. So when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. And when you want to help them yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. Remember, honesty without compassion is cruelty. And compassion without honesty, that's codependency. Practically all the gains I've made in recovery have been through the sponsorship experience. Vast majority of them. Okay, you had enough? Well, this is only the tip of the iceberg of this message. And I in no way have all these things incorporated in my life. They're mostly ideals that I strive for. I teach best what I need to learn the most. Remember that. In closing, let me leave you with some final ideas just about my own particular journey that I think is helpful. Hopefully, it's helpful for me. I kind of want to hear it again, so I guess I'll tell you, okay? When our recovery is a search for ourselves and a power greater than ourselves. And what makes the search so exciting is the answers are so surprising. Perhaps the magic isn't knowing the answers, but the journey into finding them. It is perhaps our way of understanding our existence. When I arrived here in recovery, I saw things binary, black and white, good, bad, right, or wrong. And then you guys and your principles of love, empathy, compassion, and tolerance made their way into my life, in my head. Now I see various shades of gray that precludes all my judgmental tendencies. I arrived in these rooms with a broken soul, and you healed it. You've opened my heart and my ability to love, which I didn't know how to do and learn. And I want to thank you guys for that. Now, hopefully, by sharing some of the things I've learned, I've comforted some of the afflicted. And if I'm really lucky, I've afflicted some of the comfortable. So if you're one of the comfortable that I've afflicted, call your sponsor. Or better yet, be a sponsor. One day I realized that happiness was never about my job or my money or being in a relationship. The idea of happiness is in the next place, the next job, or even with the next partner. Until I gave up the idea that happiness is somewhere else. It will never be where I am. One day I saw that happiness was always about the discovery, the hope, the listening to my heart, following it wherever it chose to go. Happiness is always about being kinder to myself. It was always about embracing the person I was becoming. The truth is that happiness was always about learning to live with myself. Happiness was never in the hands of other people. It was always about me. It's always about us. So allow yourself to be proud of yourself and all the progress you've made, especially the progress that no one else has seen. Remember that you have to give it away to keep it. God bless you. That's all. Thank you.
Could be tutti frutti or lots of different flavors. So I'll just share with you what I've experienced and what I've encountered along the way. So a little about me, because usually it's all about me. Paul D, he, him, his. I attended my first CoDA meeting the weekend after the 4th of July. That's quite vivid still in my mind after a rather blow up at the house, let's say. My home group is my CoDA home group is Milford, Connecticut. I'm this year was my first year as the voting entity delegate for Connecticut. I'm a member of the New England CoDA Alliance, which is a group of 6 states here in New England. And I'm also an active member in Alcoholics Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous. So a little bit about my experience with the steps. So as I said, I joined CoDA, attended my first CoDA meeting in July of 2022. And I met some incredible people, not only at the local level, but I heard about this New England Alliance group that I connected with, because I do have quite a history, a willingness, let's say, to be in service in recovery. And I'm still working on it, but for most of my life, I was a human doing, not a human being. So I like doing, and so I get into service. So I got in touch with this group in New England Alliance, and a woman said, I'm starting a step study group. And I know what a step study group is from other programs, other fellowships. And I thought, wow, that would be awesome. And it was online because it spanned 6 different states. And boy, I'll tell you, that not only helped me in the context and in the realm of codependency, because I was new to CoDA. I really didn't know anything about it other than my first meeting where y'all wrote the patterns and characteristics based on me, right? You know, identifying with every single one, some more than others, but all of them pertain. But I did that's about all I knew. And I thought, wow, what better way to immerse myself, and that's how I best learn, is by immersing in this step study. So fortunately, it wasn't, uh, too far tilted one way or the other gender-wise. There were other men in the group. It was a small group. It was 8 of us. But here was my takeaway, and here was the God moment right off the bat. Maybe it wasn't the first meeting. It was early on. So first, second meeting. These people who I don't know start sharing about their adverse childhood experiences. I mean, in detail, holding nothing back as far as I could tell. And I was like, I, you know, uh, 3 decades in recovery and other addictions, and I've never heard shares like this. And I was just blown away. I was, and the way that changed me was, if they can do that, I can do that. And that, I think, was one of the first CoDA experiences of how to be vulnerable. Because I have a long history of putting up the walls and not letting anyone in. But when I heard that, the walls came down. So let's leave it there. 2023, I had that was such a great experience. I put my hand up and I said, "Hey, anyone want to try getting started working the steps 1, 2, and 3? 30 questions," and we did that online. Earlier this year, be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you advertise. So I'm touting how great these step groups are, and so it felt like they ganged up on me. Several people from my home group said, "Well, so Paul, when are you going to start a step study?" So we did. There were about we started out with 8. We ended up with 6. And we used the basic text, the blue book, and the 12-step workbook. And we did about a step a week. Maybe 4th step was a little bit more. A couple of the steps we spent a little bit more than a week. So it took us, I think, about 15 weeks to finish that. And varying degrees of experience in CoDA, as much as 10 years, as little as 1 year. And it was great. And then, lastly, last year and this year, I've just been going through the steps quite often with different people in the program. Whether it's a sponsee or not, it doesn't matter to me. And whether it's going through all 12 or just the first step, it doesn't matter to me. It's just getting into the steps. So that was my experience, and now just share a little bit about my strength and hope and what I've learned. The steps are a means to connect, and it's just how I think of it, how I look at it. And I really try to encourage everyone, not just the newcomers. This is not about just newcomers, by the way. Anyone who thinks, okay, you do the steps when you first come in and I'm done, I beg to differ. I hope to never stop going through the steps. I've never gone through the steps. I've never read a step. Have you ever read something out of the literature and ask yourself, when did they put that in there? Well, I'm still having those experiences. I hope you are too, because that keeps it fresh. It keeps it exciting, keeps it interesting. I'm not a slow learner, but I'm a really fast forgetter. Um, and things I read or heard my first week, month, year, I need to hear again. So connecting, what's the opposite of addiction? It's a little trite, but what's the opposite of addiction? It's connection. So connecting and our actions are modeling, hopefully, what others will pass on, right? So if I model it's important to connect between meetings, either on the phone or at Starbucks or whatever, hopefully maybe that will stick and that person will see, wow, yeah, this is important. And they will pass that on. They will adopt that for their own. Um, this isn't about personal opinions, but I will share one anyway. Um, I believe the primary responsibility of a sponsor is to introduce and go through the steps with another member. I do believe that. I won't say I would not sponsor someone because they don't want to go through the steps. I'd have to pray about that, to be honest. But that's what I do. And in fact, I don't know how prevalent it is in CoDA. In other programs, you can have a sponsor and then you can also have a step sponsor. So I do that. I will be a step sponsor for someone, even though they have another sponsor. And obviously, I connect with that sponsor and we talk. It's always a three-way. It's never uh, anything in isolation. So, and the other thing I would say about taking someone through the steps is it is always at their pace and ability. The words I use is, look, you own this. You and I getting together once a week for an hour. This is yours. I'm willing to do this if you are. And when you want to stop, we stop. When you want to go faster, we go faster. When you want to slow down, we slow down. But only when we have done the step thoroughly. There's no skimming. And if you opt not to do the work, then maybe it's not the right time. All right. There's no blame or shame, but um, it is a commitment. It is a discipline. So I guess that's all I'll say about that. The other thing I noticed this past year is how much, I don't know if cross-reference is the right term, but there seems to be a lot of back and forth or yin and yang between the 12 steps of recovery and the patterns and characteristics. And maybe that's just emerging for me now. But boy, I see a lot of that now. It's pretty cool. I don't know if that's how the founders of this intended or not, but it's pretty cool for me. All right. I'm not going to be talking much longer, Michael, another 10 minutes or so, but then Q&A or whatever. So suggestions for working the steps and connecting to the steps. We've already, the previous speaker already spoke about step meetings. I spoke about study groups. He spoke about sponsee, sponsor. So I'm not going to touch on that again. But there are a few others I just wanted to mention. Writing the steps or writing in general is very important. Now, look, I tend to be a walking contradiction, but I'm still a work in progress. I say that I am not a great writer. I love to keep everything up here in my head. My therapist said, Paul, you live here. You live here. Come on, you got to bring it down. Bring it down into your heart, into your body, into your bones. I have difficulty writing. Pen on paper. I'm a pretty good typist, but I did do this exercise where I started writing answers to questions. And you can find it in so many pieces of CoDA literature. You can find it in the Blue Book basic text, obviously the workbook. I don't know if many of you have picked up the newest book, Growing Up in CoDA. That's got a lot of questions in it and exercises. If you haven't tried that, try it. And the reason that's important that I've learned, look, I'm not in I should have qualified. I am not in the medical field or the mental health. Any of that, right? I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm an accountant, for crying out loud. So this is all from what I've learned. All right. So writing the steps, anytime we write something down, we engage the hand and the mind in writing. We're using a different part of the brain than we do when we're speaking or thinking, reading to our writing engages the creative side of the brain, which opens up, step 2, openness. It opens us up. So as we're writing, our brain is actually doing other things in a creative realm. It's really cool. So those who've experienced that know what I'm talking about. Journaling. You've all heard in a lot of the literature, journaling is pretty important. How do you journal the steps? When you encounter something during your day that reminds you of a step, or something comes to you about a question or a thought about a step or a word in the step, or, well, what does that mean? Just make a note of it. And in a similar vein, writing engages a different part of the brain. So does verbalizing. Verbalizing, speaking has an effect, right? I speak and then I hear myself speaking. There's a loop there. And I can't tell you how many times, and it's cathartic, right? When I speak, I'm sharing, whether it's a burden, a joy, a celebration, a hardship, a worry. It's shared when I verbalize, because people can't read my mind. I'm still working on that, because I would rather people read my mind and know what I'm thinking. I've done that with my spouse for our 42 years of marriage, and it still isn't working. So verbalizing is pretty important, and verbalizing could be in a group, a meeting, or it could be one-on-one. Some of us feel more safe one-on-one with that kind of verbalizing. So find out what works for you. This I cannot say I've done, but I heard it and I think it's cool. Teach or talk to your inner child about the steps. What? Yeah, I'm going to try that. We have step prayers. Did you know we have step prayers? They're on the website. There's also a little book from CoRE. There's a prayer book from CoRE. You could do your prayers daily, reading them. I like memorization. I just enjoy memorizing. I was in every play from second grade on up. I'm not an actor. I just enjoy that sort of thing. So maybe memorizing. Meditating, I do meditate. I won't tell that story right now, but meditation changed me before I came into CoDA. Probably was a huge stepping stone to get to CoDA. So there's different kinds of meditation. There's mindfulness meditation. There's contemplative. So in a contemplative meditation form, maybe you want to think of powerlessness and just meditate on what that means, or surrender, humility, amends, something like that. Might be interesting to try. And we've already mentioned workshops, conventions, special events. If you're curious, Google origins of the 12 steps, and you can learn how Bill and Dr. Bob came about. They started out as started out with 4 absolute truths, and they evolved to the 12 steps. So, I think I'm going to end there, and allow time for questions. But I'll close with this without trying to sound arrogant. I try to say in a kind and gentle way that if you want the most out of a 12-step recovery group, Why not try the 12 steps? Just try it. Just try step one. And the steps are in order for a reason. We're all human. And I know I can so identify with people who learn a couple of things and immediately want to make apologies to everybody. I suggest to them that that's not the right timing, maybe. The steps are in order for a reason, and the amends are at the end of cleaning house. There's a reason for that. I respect everyone where they are when it comes to the steps. Yes, there's the GOD word, but I do try to explain that that is not a religious God. It's not a deity. It can be anything. Good orderly direction, great outdoors, gift of desperation. Personally, and I do practice a faith, I will say that. And I will also say I don't prefer the God word. What works best for me and what incorporates and encompasses my understanding is a power greater than me. And that's, see, to me, that makes it unlimited and everywhere. As long as it's not me, and it can't be because I'm not everything and everywhere. I I tried. It didn't work out, and here I am. So I think that's also important. The 12 steps of recovery is unique. There are no other programs, treatments, or they have borrowed from, no question. They have modified. Let's try stripping out every single word of God or spirituality, and let's try that. Let's try, let's try I being the higher power. Let's try melding everything together, any kind and every kind of addiction, and make it really generic. And let's try that. For me, I go to an AA meeting for my alcoholism. I go to Gamblers Anonymous for my gambling addiction. And I go to Codependents Anonymous with a desire for healthy and loving relationships. Yes. But the elephant in the room was I still didn't like myself. I want to continue to learn how to like and love myself. And I can only do that in CoDA. And if other people in other fellowships find that attractive, then I tell them where my home group is. So I hope none of that sounded too preachy. I try to use I and me pronouns. I don't know if I did, but this was helpful for me. I hope it was helpful for you, and that's all I got. Thanks.